Good day, and welcome to the League of Women Voters Meet the Candidates Forum, a program produced in collaboration with WTJX for well over 35 years. I am Felecita Saldana Richards, moderator to today's program. As I live with and care for an elderly relative who may be immunocompromised due to advanced age, I have chosen to wear a mask for today's program. I ask your understanding and acceptance of my decision as I strive to protect her. It is the League's hope that through these programs that you, the voting public, will have a better understanding of each candidate running for elective office in the U.S. Virgin Islands. We invite you to look at all our programs for the 2022 election year right here on WTJX, with candidates seeking office as a senator in the 35th legislature, as governor, or as lieutenant governor. Although all candidates for these positions were invited, not all responded or accepted the invitation. We are delighted to have here today 3 candidates running for the position of senator in the St. Thomas District. The candidates have been informed in advance of the guidelines for the program. No candidate had access to the questions in advance. The first responder to each question will be rotated among the participants. Answers will generally be kept to 60 or 90 seconds. Changes in timing of a question will be announced in advance. Any comment directed specifically at another participant will be followed by a rebuttal of 60 seconds. All are expected to be respectful of everyone. So let's begin. I will ask each candidate to identify who they are and to state their political affiliation and ballot number. We will learn more about each of our candidates as discussion ensues. Let's start with Senator Dwayne DeGraff.
Greetings, my fellow Virgin Islanders. I am Dwayne DeGraff, independent candidate, number 12 on the ballot.
Next, we will have Mr. Fonseca.
Greetings, I am Ray Fonseca, your new Democratic candidate for the legislature, number 6 on your ballot. Thank you.
And we will complete with Senator Potter.
Greetings, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Milton Potter. I am number 10 on the ballot. I am seeking re-election for a seat in the 35th legislature of the Virgin Islands.
Thank you all. Now, for our first question. Let's begin by talking about your readiness to be a senator. Here is a 2-part question, for which you will each have 90 seconds to answer. Let's begin. As a candidate for a seat in the VI legislature, what are your competencies, as well as education or training, that will make you a good choice to address our issues as a senator? And part B, what are your recent accomplishments that show your skills and readiness to assume the responsibilities of the office? You will have 90 seconds. We will begin with Senator DeGraff.
Thank you very much for the question. My skills are being a Virgin Islander who have lived here all my life. I've served in 3 terms and continue to work for the people of the Virgin Islands. I believe I bring a strong decency to the position as a senator with my background in law enforcement, military, and now as a senator. What I have supported legislation on and sponsored legislation in terms of support to the seniors during disasters, the veterans with burial benefits, and to generate revenue for the Vitron bus system. I also look forward to supporting summer students and taking part in several community events and also bringing notable resolutions to honor some of our Virgin Islanders who are prominent. Give the flowers to them while they're alive. Those are some of the attributes I bring, and I am as eager now as I was when I first joined. So I continue in service to the people. Thank you for the question.
Thank you. And we will move on to Mr. Fonseca.
Yes, thank you, Felicita. I'm Ray Fonseca. I was born in Savon. I went to daycare in Paul and Pearson Gardens. I went to Lockhart Elementary School at Alita Cancrine. I graduated from Eudora Ken High School. I studied at Florida State University. I got a degree in accounting and hotel administration. And I also completed my master's of business administration here at the university. I have many years of experience in the Virgin Islands government. I served as the chief executive officer for the Virgin Islands Housing Authority. During my tenure, we managed over $400 million in federal construction projects in the entire Virgin Islands. Some of my recent accomplishments, I've been the project manager here at University of the Virgin Islands in the Marine Science Building. We've also done the renovations of Kmart Tutu Park, also Lockhart Gardens. We also did Kmart Sunny Isles and also Kmart in Frederickstead, St. Croix. You know, I am a candidate to help my constituents. I want to improve the standard of living for our people here in the Virgin Islands. So I am very pleased to be able to be here, and thank you once again.
Thank you for your response, Mr. Fonseca. And Senator Potter, if you would please respond to the question, 2-part question.
Thank you very much for the question. I believe that my competencies are significant for the position of senator in the Virgin Islands legislature. I hold a master's and bachelor's degree from Florida A&M University in school psychology as well as criminal justice. I am a senior certified professional with the Society for Human Resources. I've served as past director of the Division of Personnel for a number of years, 4+ years. I have served as HR director for the Virgin Islands Port Authority, executive director for the Virgin Islands Board of Education. I have served as past president and treasurer for the St. Thomas Federal Credit Union. So my experience and competencies are vast. I believe I am duly qualified to serve in the position as your senator. As a freshman senator, I believe that my accomplishments are significant. Also, I chaired the powerful Rules and Judiciary Committee, where we vetted over 200 bills and a number of nominees to significant boards in the Virgin Islands government. I authored a number of meaningful bread and butter issue bills, such as the Return to Work bill, allowing retirees to return to work while retaining their retirement annuity. I authored the Responsible Fatherhood Act of 2022. My accomplishments are significant. We do not have enough time to go into everything here. Thank you very much for the opportunity.
Thank you, Senator Potter. We'll move on to our second question. So, and we will start with Mr. Fonseca. as our first respondent on this question. So let's now talk about your vision for the VI. 2027 will mark the 100th anniversary of American citizenship for Virgin Islanders and 110 years since purchase from Denmark. The question is, what is your vision with respect to self-government for the U.S. Virgin Islands? And what role do you intend to play, if any? Please note that self-governance does not necessarily imply independence.
Thank you very much. That's a very good question. I have been advocating that the Virgin Islands needs to develop a sovereign wealth fund. I'm going to get back to that real shortly. But I think the Virgin Islands are in a situation where we need to determine as the people what we want our final status to be. And me, as your next legislator in the 35th, next senator in the 35th legislature, I will follow whatever the wishes are of the people. The Sovereign Wealth Fund is important because we need to have a significant reserve because there are pandemics that needs emergency funding. There's a hurricane that needs emergency funding. Right now with the Charlotte Amalia High School, there's a funding issue. So we need to be able to be self-sufficient so that, for example, if FEMA requires a 10% down payment, if we get $1 billion, we need to be able to come up with that $100 million to be able to start the progress of projects. That is one of the reasons why a lot of our projects are stagnant. The Virgin Islands does not have sufficient capacity. Also, healthcare is very important. More on that in a little bit. And also education. Thank you once again. This is Ray Fonseca.
Senator Potter, if you would please respond to the question.
Thank you very much for the question. For sure, any civilized, modern society should have its own constitution. And so I think a big part of what we need to do is to develop our own constitution. The time is right. We are long overdue in that respect. We also must determine our status. I know we've made several attempts at that, but I think that significant year, the 2027, for sure, we should be in a position to have those two significant issues settled by then. I think the Revised Organic Act for sure is a federal law. It doesn't allow us the flexibility to make the necessary changes that a modern, evolving community should be able to do. Significant issues like, do we want to elect a attorney general, for example? The Revised Organic Act, as it is structured now, would bar us from making those types of decisions. That is federal law. The Revised Organic Act of 1954 is federal law, and if you want to make adjustments to federal law, it requires some involvement from the Congress. So, these are two major things that we need to do by 2027, the issue of the Constitution, as well as the status of the U.S. Virgin Islands.
Thank you, Senator Potter. If you would please respond to the question, Senator DeGraff.
Thank you for the question. I believe, clear and simple, 2027 is 5 years away, adding 23, 4, 5, 6, 7. Let's adopt the Organic Act 1954 as our constitution and be allowed to amend it. Put this before Congress, let them vote on it and go in that direction. Then we have the flexibility to negotiate with the U.S. federal government, United States, and decide how we want to govern ourselves in terms of health care, in terms of looking out for our people first, versus just taking what the United States is saying. I'm not saying to get away from the United States at all in any way, but I think we need a little more clout in terms of how we want to be able to negotiate to address working with the United States. So I think it's clear and simple for me. Let's move to have the delegate, we put this bill forward, adopt the Organic Act of 1954, and be allowed to amend it, because we already voted on it, that we are going in that structure, and I support that 100%. Thank you for the question.
Thank you for your response. We will now move on to another question, and this pertains to moral and ethical behavior. To what extent should moral or ethical issues in the private life of political candidates be taken into account by voters in making their choices, and why? You'll have 60 seconds.
Thank you for the question. I don't think that you can separate moral and ethical behavior from evaluating a candidate's competencies or readiness to serve. Service is a noble calling of the highest order, in my opinion. And you don't just want a technician to serve as your senator. You need someone who is ethical, someone who is moral, someone who has high standards, who can be an example for the people of the Virgin Islands. So I think, morality plays a very critical role in the decision of the people of the Virgin Islands to elect people to serve on their behalf. You cannot separate one from the other.
Senator DeGraff, your response to the question?
Yes, I think we as legislators make laws, and it's for us to follow the laws. But personally, I believe your standards must be high. You're going into public office, you're going to be ridiculed, and you're going to defend and support the Constitution and the people of the Virgin Islands and the laws of the Virgin Islands. So I think your morality should be above reproach. None of us are perfect. I'm not asking to be perfect, but again, we must be able to not lead by example, but become the example and lead in all that you do, every day, every night, all the time. Thank you for the question.
Mr. Fonseca, your response to the question?
Yes, thank you, Ms. Richards. I am running a campaign on transparency and accountability. Morality is extremely important for every public servant. Here in the Virgin Islands, we have a little bit of work to do with morality. And I believe that right now we have lost some of our standards, ethical standards that we had when I was a child growing up. I was listening to the commish show on Radio 1000 today, and the Commissioner Liston Davis was talking about J. Antonio Jarvis and his standards. And I remember growing up as a boy, people like Miss Roberts, where James Madison School is very important. Morality and ethics are extremely important. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your response. In a recent poll of the electorate in 2022, voters identified 4 areas of major concern as being education, crime, health, and WAPA. Let's look at each one separately and address what your responses will be for these matters if elected to the 35th legislature. We will begin with Senator DeGraff. With respect to education, Senator DeGraff, this was cited by voters as one of 4 major concerns. What do you see as the primary challenges facing education today, and what would be your strategies for addressing them as a senator in the 35th legislature? You will have 90 seconds each.
Thank you for the question. Along the lines of education, I am a product of the public school system. One, I'm also a product of the CTE, which was vocational education. I believe those are some of the things we have to put back in education, sponsor them, fund them, and provide for individuals who have these trades to be able to teach individuals. Education, first of all, I do agree with the voting public. Education for me is number one. Some of the things we have to do are look at what the standards are for United States and not adopt everything from the United States in terms of we are not getting our students ready. So along the lines of education, the funding, hiring teachers is a serious, serious effort. Provide some kind of incentives for individuals who are teachers to come back home, or for individuals in college who are studying education courses right now. That's the line I would go along for education. Thank you.
Thank you for your response, Senator DeGraff. Can you please respond to the question, Mr. Fonseca?
Yes, thank you. You know, I am a candidate for the 35th legislature, and we have a new blueprint. And education is extremely important. So first, I'm proposing that we teach our youth financial literacy. Our youth have to know about credit. They need to know about paying bills and managing their finances and living within their means. We also have to, and this is extremely important, teach our youth about conflict resolution and how to control your attitudes. That's a long, long subject. Additionally, we need to give special attention to our at-risk youth. You know, I want to bring back the trades in education. Because, you know, if you're a plumber, you're a mechanic, you're a mason, you're an electrician, you can earn a good living wage and be able to feed your family for the rest of your lives. Also, in addition, we must realize that the world is moving forward, and now that a lot of our children has been exposed to the online learning capabilities, we must continue to blend the online with the in-classroom learning. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Fonseca. Senator Potter, can you please respond to the question on education?
Absolutely. I'm very proud that the people of the Virgin Islands selected education as the major area of concern. Without question, issue of education keeps me up at night. It keeps me up because of the learning loss that our children have experienced. Just picture this. The last time we had a full year of school was the 2016-2017 school year. We were recovering from 2 brutal hurricanes. Before we were able to catch ourselves, we were hit by COVID-19. And, you know, the on again, off again school. Nobody's fault. That's just a reality that we inherited. But what we need to focus on is the learning loss and how we're going to fill that void. We're going to see the ramifications of this if we are not intentional in our efforts to fill the void. I would suggest that we develop an Office of Learning and Recovery and Acceleration, specifically geared towards developing strategies aimed at filling the void, the gaps in learning that our children have experienced. We need somebody to wake up every day to say, this is my job. My job is to ensure that something happens today to make sure that our children are up to par. We know what happens after children are not reading on par in the 3rd grade. That is the biggest predictor of mass incarceration and so forth. So education is something that we need to devote some significant time and effort towards. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll move on to another major area of concern. Health was cited by voters as one of the top 4 major concerns. Many leave the territory in search of health care, especially on St. Croix. What do you see as the primary challenges regarding health care And what would be your strategies for addressing them as a senator in the 35th legislature? You will have 90 seconds. We will begin with you, Mr. Fonseca.
Yes, thank you once again. Healthcare. You know, our new blueprint involves having free screening for certain chronic diseases. For example, breast cancer, colon cancer, prostate cancer, different forms of illnesses, high blood pressure, diabetes. I also want the medical school in the University of the Virgin Islands to be fully accredited. We need in the hospitals, we need to provide up-to-date, state-of-the-art diagnostic equipment. You need to be able to go to our hospitals and get a CAT scan. You need to be able to get an MRI. You need to be able to have the latest X-ray machines so that we can be able to treat our patients, our people here in the Virgin Islands. You know, it would save us money because, for example, with this screening, diagnostic screening I'm talking about, we can potentially discover the illnesses when they are in stage 1. For example, it's much easier to treat any form of cancer if you diagnose it in stage 1 as to a stage 4, when the prognosis for extended life is very, very slim. So healthcare is extremely important with our new blueprint. Thank you.
Thank you for your response. We will continue with Senator Potter. The issue is health.
Thank you for the question again. Our health facilities are in dire straits in the territory, without question. And for a territory that's here isolated, we need reliable health care, all of us. I think we need to work with our delegate to Congress to ensure that we make progress with regards to the rebuild of both facilities, the Wang Lui facilities, Myra Keaton, as well as the Schneider Hospital. It leaves a lot to be desired. Folks with means have the ability to get up and go to Florida, to Cleveland Clinic, to Mayo Clinic, to get their healthcare issues resolved. Not everybody has the wherewithal to do that. So we need to give priority towards rebuilding our structures. It is also a challenge to recruit specialists here to our territory. We need to provide the funding and to find the funding and make that a priority to lure specialists here to the territory. Psychiatrists, we have one psychiatrist in the Virgin Islands full-time. Mental health is a growing problem here in our territory. So there is a whole lot that we need to do to ensure that we beef up our healthcare infrastructure here in the U.S. Virgin Islands.
Senator DeGraff.
Yes, thank you for the question. I believe that we have an aged population. That's a fact. And I do think that we must get our hospitals, cancer clinic, everything going back online 100% rebuilt. Also, let's look at health tourism, where I believe through health tourism we could attract some of the quality physicians and therapists and professionals that we need here into the territory, so individuals don't have to keep leaving the island to seek health care. But healthcare is an issue where, again, health insurance. I think we need to look at also trying to say we could provide health insurance besides the government health insurance, where private entities can also get into providing health insurance for the public. So those are some of the things we need to look into immediately. We don't have a long time. With our age population, we're seeing the prevalence of the illnesses and the lack of treatment and the lack of knowledge. So again, we also have to go ahead into education, strong health education, and I'm seeing it now taking place in certain things that are being done. Thank you for the question.
So we'll move on to Another major area of concern for our Virgin Islanders with respect to crime. What do you see as the challenges, and what would be your strategies for addressing them as senator in the 35th legislature? We'll begin with Senator Potter.
Crime is a very significant issue, of course. We are being held hostage by the criminal element here in the community. We've tried the cameras, for sure. We've tried the tough laws. What is one of the best kept secrets is that the Virgin Islands has some of the toughest gun laws anywhere America flies a flag, but still a crime situation persists. I think we need to look at really implemented community-oriented policing. I know it sounds like something we've said before, but in truth and in fact, we've never really implemented it. We need a manpower to do so. It gives us the opportunity for police officers to build viable relationships in neighborhoods so that you have officers embedded in the communities so that they can forge relationships with the community citizens. So you're not only having a slogan when if you see something, say something, but I feel like I can trust a police officer who I am engaging with through good times. So when the difficult times come, I'm comfortable approaching them. So that is something that's significantly important. I think we also need to focus on targeting crime, addressing the manpower and resources to specific areas where you see crime occurring. And crime is isolated to specific targeted areas. So we need to intelligently deploy our manpower, focusing on those areas where the crime is occurring. Thank you.
Senator DeGraff.
Yes, thank you for the question. I believe crime, again, needs to start off with education. There were some great programs that the police department had, the Law and You. I believe the Department of Education had a program, Parent University, where they were informing individuals. Crime is a situation where crime of opportunity. When you have the opportunity to commit a crime, it'll be done. Provide more for these young generation in terms of jobs, job training. And then, if last but not least, we will make the laws to put them behind bars. I've sponsored legislation on gun control to address ghost guns. Guns are being brought into the territory and put together. I've sponsored with other senators a cash for guns, gun buyback, to try to get some of these guns off the streets. But again, we have to go back to the community as a whole, where we had intramural basketball and different sports and things growing up, and that kind of information. To see something and say something, I support 100% cameras. I supported legislation for drones. But again, the education part of it is a big missing part. It's easy to lock someone up and put them away. We figure the crime has gone. It has not. The opportunity just has changed. So again, the education toward addressing crime is what I support, and then the full onslaught of enforcement. Thank you.
Thank you for your response. Mr. Fonseca, the issue is crime.
Yes, crime, territory. I think we all can agree it's very, very bad right now. I think we need to start with love. We need more love in the community. We need to love one another. I grew up here. It never used to be so bad. You used to have a little fist fight and thing, but at the end of the day, you still loved your neighbors. We need to put back the trades in the schools. Our young people need to have a skill, and we need to provide a job for them for a living wage. The see something, say something, the cameras, all of those programs are good. In the 34th legislature, I attended a vigil that was sponsored by former Senator Myron Jackson. And at that time, there was over 587 Virgin Islanders that were gunned down. This is gun violence. We need more love. We need to teach our youth a trade. We need to have more police officers. You know, there's been a lot of police officers taking the tests. They have not been able to pass, or for some minor infraction, maybe they smoke a little marijuana 10 years ago, they cannot get in. Let's get together and solve this. Thank you very much.
Thank you. We would like to follow up with an additional question on crime. Sexual assault against our children is a concern in our community. Recent disclosure of assaults against 12 schoolboys by a teacher, a coach, is shocking, and the community was rightfully outraged. But girls are raped and assaulted too. How can you, as a senator, protect our boys and girls, our young men, our young women, from sexual assaults by adults? 60 seconds, please. And if you would respond, starting with Senator DeGraff.
Thank you for the question. Again, I believe education. Educating our young boys and girls to what the elements of the crime are. Someone who you know and things that they're doing, places they're touching, situation they're putting you in, and things that they're saying. Educate our young boys and girls to be on the lookout for those kind of issues, even with persons and family members who are close to them. You know, but again, it's for them to be educated from a young age, that the things that people say, the things that people do, and the way they look at you, the way they touch, gestures, is not right. And to say something. Those are issues where if you see something, if something happened to you, say it, confide in somebody, and continue saying it. You know, there is support for it. Thank you.
Mr. Fonseca?
Yeah, you know, again, it goes back to, you know, VI pride and personal dignity. You know, sexual predators, there's no room for that in our community. You know, I served as a soccer coach for the Dover Elementary School. So, you know, Saturday morning, we have a big game. Friday night, a lot of these guys would overnight over by my house. You know, I believe, and I really believe that that incident that happened with that male assaulting these young guys, I think that's really an isolated event, and it's not reflective of our community as a whole. But it's very serious. Any kind of sexual assault, sexual predator is very serious. But we need more love in the community. Let's get together to fix these issues. Our people are not like that. Thank you very much.
Senator Potter? Thank you for your response, Mr. Fonseca. Senator Potter?
I think it was probably one of the most bone-chilling news that I heard when we heard about this prolific sexual assaulter who was working with our children, coach and several sporting teams, and a coach at school, at Shalamali High School. It was something that's troubling and disturbing as someone who has children. I think that we need to ensure that we have proper policies in place at schools to make children feel comfortable in reporting when things happen that should not happen, where there's a safe place that students feel that they can report these incidences to. Because I'm sure someone said something, one of these children said something, but I don't think in those cases that we took our children serious enough. Our parents need to pay attention to. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your response. Now we'll continue with major concerns, and WAPA is an area of major concern cited by our voters. What do you see as the major challenges for WAPA? And what would be your strategies for addressing them as a senator in the 35th legislature? You will have 90 seconds each. We will start with you, Senator DeGraff.
Oh, thank you. I do agree again 100% with the public in regards to WAPA, but I think is different prongs we have to look at in terms of what the rates and the generations and the equipment, we have to look at that. Also, I believe management. I believe management is a major issue with WAPA, where they were before us in the Senate in a hearing, and it was said that it's being built from the bottom up. I don't think individuals in WAPA can actually assess what's going on, manage WAPA, and be true to the people of the territory. So I think there should be some kind of outside temporary receivership to address the Water and Power Authority, to look at the rates, to look at the equipment that they have, and to look at in-house, the personnel structure and everything that way. So I think if we could put those things together and address it that way, rather than just making it seem like, WAPA is a bad guy, because they have a lot of great employees who work for WAPA. But I think the overall management of WAPA is where the problem begins. Thank you for the time.
Thank you. Mr. Fonseca?
Yes, WAPA. I have a 5-step plan to address WAPA. It's over 5 minutes long. So basically, in an executive summary, WAPA has an accountability and a transparency problem. I agreed with the delegate when she had recommended that WAPA be basically put in a state of emergency. I'm kind of wavering on that now, because WAPA now has a new executive director, and I've listened to him, and I think that we should give him the benefit of the doubt. He has brought on some new staff, and I think there's competency in the staff. And I think WAPA is no worse than it was. It's not better, in my opinion. There's been a lot of recent outages. But being the fact that he mentioned purchasing those Wärtsilä generators, I believe, I think that's a good step in the right direction, because the procurement of how it was in the past, where we're paying hundreds of thousands of dollars monthly for a generator that costs $7, $8, $9 million that we could have purchased outright, is good. Additionally, WAPA has over $1.4 billion of liabilities. So I'm saying that WAPA is an issue we need to address. Thank you.
Thank you for your response, Mr. Fonseca. Senator Potter, the issue is WAPA.
I can say a whole lot about WAPA. We can all say a whole lot about WAPA. I think we've experienced issues with WAPA for over 50 years here in the Virgin Islands. We haven't seen any significant gains over the years. It has become an emotional issue with Virgin Islanders, because we pay a premium rate for unreliable service. That is distressing. As recent as this weekend, we had significant outages throughout the island. But I think, and for sure, we have a new leadership at the Water and Power Authority. We have to give them a chance to make the improvements. But I do not believe that the people of the Virgin Islands are going to see any significant relief in terms of the rate that we pay, unless we develop a solar and renewables division at the Water and Power Authority. Solar and renewables are the way to go. I'm talking about wind, hydro, and the like. We need to do that and have that implemented if we are going to see some relief to our power bill. I've submitted legislation to require the Water and Power Authority to generate the majority of its energy utilizing renewables and solar. And we ask for 25%, 30%, 50%, 75% progressively over the years. That is really the only way that the people of the Virgin Islands are going to see any meaningful reduction in what we pay at WAPA and see any improvement in reliability. Thank you.
Gentlemen, thank you for your response, Senator Potter. Gentlemen, for the first time in 25 years, the GERS was not identified as a major concern. What is your understanding of why this is so, and what lessons can we learn about how this came to be so? We will start with you, Mr. Fonseca.
Yes, thank you very much, the GERS. You know, I've been a candidate for elective office for over 4 years now, and I had been advocating for many years on TV, on radios, that we needed to restructure the bonds and donate the rum cover over to help GERS. Because at the time, our bonds were rated as junk status. Now, in 90 seconds, I can't get into the actuarially studies of GERS, but the GERS now must go to the next step. The GERS must provide and reinstate the land loans to our people. The GERS must reinstate the homeowner loans to our people. This is a step in the right direction to provide more home ownership opportunities for our people of the Virgin Islands. Additionally, I will propose legislation where we're going to create a Tier 3, because one of the most important benefits that the GERS provides is health insurance. And there are a lot of folks in our community, namely in the private sector, that do not have adequate health insurance. And this is an area, by creating a Tier 3, that I will provide the details later at the GERS, we can help the private sector. Thank you very much.
Thank you. We will move on to Senator Potter. Respond to the question.
Thank you for the question. I am very proud that I was appointed to the GERS subcommittee when I got elected to the Senate. And I think that was done because when I was candidate Potter, I stressed the importance for us to have a GERS Solutions Summit where we got all stakeholders to the table, talking about Governor Bryan, the legislature, the actuaries, the consultants, all stakeholders sitting to the table at the same time to figure out a solution to this very vexing and troubling multi-billion-dollar unfunded liability issue that was threatening the survival of the system. I'm pleased, I was very heartened by the fact that we didn't call it a summit, but there was movement to sit to the table, Governor Bryan, the legislature, the actuaries, we all sat around the table to come up with perfecting the approach, the bonding refinancing approach to fix the system, and that works. Nothing meaningful, and in my short time here in the Senate, I've learned that nothing meaningful and of consequence happens in the Senate or in government unless or until we have a positive collaboration by stakeholders. So I was very, very pleased to have been a part of that process.
Senator DeGraff, your response to the question?
Yes, thank you for the question. I too were very happy to be be the vice chair of the subcommittee on GERS, and to basically sit down in collaboration and put a vote towards what we consider to be the end of the issues of GERS. But I believe going forward, we still have to look at GERS because we're so in the early stages of receiving monies from the bond. We see where the rum cover monies came in at $10.50. The delegates say it will go back up to $13.25. Those are some things that we have to look at and make sure that we have funding to continue to sustain the GERS and watch and keep close eye on how GERS is being managed going forward, because we provided a lot of money to avert insolvency. So again, let's do that. Also, I was able to provide different legislation in regards to putting millions of dollars into GERS. Legislation, Act 83 that should have put possibly $50 million into GERS ended up being $5 million. So again, continue for putting legislation, but the management of GERS going forward is what I'm keeping a close eye on And again, I'm happy to have been the vice chair for the GERS subcommittee. Thank you.
Thank you all for your responses. Gentlemen, we have so many more questions for you, but unfortunately, we are at our final question in terms of time. So our final question is your choice. We invite you to answer either of the following. Question 1, address any other topic of concern that you have an interest in, along with your approach to addressing the topic. Or identify a major piece of legislation you intend to introduce over the next 2 years as senator and indicate why. So we will start with our last respondent was Senator DeGraff. We'll start with you, Mr. Fonseca.
Yes. There's several new pieces of legislation that we have identified in our new blueprint. The first one that I'm going to tackle is the supplemental security income. You know, right now we have many of our elderly, disabled, and blind residents that have total assets of less than $3,000 living here, and they do not qualify for the federal SSI program. So we're going to introduce legislation to establish a Virgin Islands supplemental security income program. Let's keep our elderly residents home here with us where we could love them. They should not have to move to the United States to qualify for this SSI program. Now, the other area that I want to address immediately is the inflation and the cost of living. You know, I am going to introduce legislation for the GERS to pay a cost of living allowance, a yearly cost of living allowance to all retirees, and this would be based on the same rate the current Social Security Administration pays all of its retirees. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your response. We'll move on to you, Senator Potter. 60 seconds.
Thank you very much. I think the one thing that I am definitely going to be focusing on next term is mandatory mental health education in the K-12 curriculum. I think we don't need to underestimate the impact of mental health in this community. Sergeant General Vivek Murphy indicated that we have a mental health crisis. We have a mental health crisis in the States, and I submit to you that we have a mental health crisis in the U.S. Virgin Islands. A lot of what we see that appear to be crime, that appears to be children just being in mischief, I think it is a manifestation of major mental health challenges that our children are experiencing. I think that having mandatory mental health education in our schools eradicates the stigma associated with mental health so that more people will talk about it, more people will communicate the struggles and the feelings that they are experiencing, so that the stigma associated with mental health will be eradicated, and we can begin to treat issues at an early stage so that we remediate them and they don't escalate into chronic problems later on in life. Thank you very much for the opportunity.
Thank you, Senator Potter. Your response, Senator DeGraff.
Yes, thank you for the question. I'm looking at two things right off the bat. One is the veteran population. I have legislation in to build the Office of Veterans Affairs and where it be housed also for the American Legion. So it becomes a one-stop shop for veterans. The veterans have served this community and the world and the United States for a very long time. And, you know, I want to make sure they get their honor. We also have a senior, older population, and I'm looking into trying to obtain a facility that we could have for senior long-term care, mental health care, geriatrics, nursing home, and assisted living, where we could have a combination, basically like a complex, to provide for a lot of our seniors who are here, who live alone, who need health care, but have to leave the island and think, you know, to be treated Their families are taking care of them and doing a great job, but they need to have some kind of facility that becomes also like a one-stop shop. Thank you for the question.
Thank you, Senator DeGraff. Our time has come to a close, so you will have 30 seconds. If you would each say your name and the number on the ballot, and a thank you to our viewers. We'll begin with you, Mr. Fonseca, since Senator DeGraff responded last.
Yes, my fellow Virgin Islanders, I am Ray Fonseca, your new Democratic candidate, number 6 on the ballot. We're asking you to vote for experience, vote for transparency, vote for accountability. On November 8th, please vote Ray Fonseca, number 6 on your ballot. Thank you very much.
Senator Potter.
Thank you, League, for this opportunity. I'm going to ask the people of the Virgin Islands to consider giving me an opportunity to serve once again in the 35th legislature. I'm Milton Potter, number 10 on the ballot. You elect different types of people to the Senate, different personalities, different styles. When you elect me, what you see is what you get. You get balanced, level-headed leadership. I'm a worker bee. I'm not a rant and rave bee. I'm a worker bee. I'm going to get the job done with respect and dignity. Thank you very much for the opportunity.
Senator DeGraff.
And thank you. My name is Dwayne DeGraff, number 12 on the ballot. I'm as eager now as I've been when I joined in the 32nd legislature. I've come to work. I've missed 2 meetings in my 3 terms, and those are for personal reasons. My mother passed and health issues. But again, I'm here to serve. What I know is service to the people. Served a long time in the military, served a long time in the police department, and I'm here to stay. Going forward, again, I'm asking for your vote. Number 12 on the ballot, Dwayne DeGraff. Thank you.
Thank you, candidates. And thank you, WTJX TV and staff, for today's program. Thank you all for watching and for understanding my choice for a mask today. The League of Women Voters hopes this program has helped with your understanding of the candidates, and in so doing will inform your vote in November.